Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our special webcast presentation sponsored by American Public University. My name is Dan Soshin, and today we're going to be talking about careers in transportation and logistics management. Our first speaker is going to be Dr. Oliver Hedgepath, Program Director of Transportation and Logistics Management at APU. Oliver has conducted RFID research since 2005 and has published RFID metrics in 2007. Prior to his employment at APU, Oliver was a professor of logistics for University of Alaska for 9 years. And for 28 years, Oliver was with the Department of Defense, employed as a civilian operations research analyst, where he conducted cost and operational effectiveness analyses, developed computer models, and artificial intelligence applications for logistics and combat systems. Thanks, Oliver, for joining us. Our second speaker is going to be Phil Ratcliffe, Vice President of Strategic Resources at Panther Expedited Services. Phil acts as the Corporate Project Manager and Quality System Manager, overseeing projects as diverse as building renovations to department reorganizations to strategic software implementations. Additionally, Phil oversees the HR function to include recruiting and employee development. So those of you looking for career opportunities out there, make sure you send Phil your questions. Phil started his career at Panther Expedited Services 15 years ago as one of the company's first frontline truck dispatchers. We greatly appreciate Phil's time today. Okay, our third and final speaker is going to be Irvin Varconi. He's an adjunct professor of transportation and logistics management at APU. Irv is a career professional in global air cargo and express distribution services, including KLM Royal Dutch Airlines, Martin Air Holland, and Emery Worldwide. In addition to his role as adjunct professor at APU, Irv is also the marketing manager for transportation and logistics outreach. Irv has published articles in Defense Transportation Journal, Institute of Supply Management, and Cargo Security. Lastly, Irv is a certified supply chain professional and a professional logistician. Irv, thanks for joining us. Okay, so before we jump into the real content, I want to share our first poll. And our first poll is going to appear on the screen for you. Our first question is, logistics is defined as A, moving goods, B, managing information about moving goods, C, moving the right item at the right time, and D, manufacturing equipment and getting it into the right place. Okay, so we'll go ahead and use the on-screen controls. Choose A, B, C, or D. And I see a lot of folks are voting. 1/3 of our attendees have cast their vote. Again, choose one choice, A, B, C, or D. Logistics is defined as. And I'm going to go ahead and close the poll now. And let's share the results. Take a look at our screen here and see what the results were. All right, so it looks like the overwhelming majority, about 81%, selected moving the right item at the right time for the right price safely. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to our first presenter, who will discuss those results and take it from here.
Okay, well, thank you very much. This is Oliver Hedgepath, and I like to see these poll results. Logistics is indeed moving the right items at the right time and place. You have to do that, especially these days of trying to get things into a just-in-time framework, and as we try to figure out what just-in-time really is. The transportation companies are working closer together than ever before. Since I guess, the 2008 fuel crisis and other things that have happened in this recession, companies like rail and industry are working together to try to move things faster and better and smarter. We still move things. We still move them in warehouses and move goods. We still manufacture aspects of equipment, and that's all part of logistics. Every answer up there was right, but there's one that's kind of like more right than others. So thank you very much for that. It's good to see people thinking about the right thing at the right place at the right time. Again, we have a lot of careers that we want to talk about, and we could spend really hours on talking about the different careers in different fields. I've thrown this slide up. It came to me from Steve Grabacki, who works with Graystar Seafoods up in Alaska, and we've worked with seafood supply chain a lot. Food is one of the big fields of jobs and careers in this industry, whether you're a fisherman gathering and harvesting seafood or whether you're a processor. And there are a lot of processors in between. There are jobs at Safeway and Walmart and all kinds of retail stores that handle seafood in various forms, that package the seafood. People are involved in jobs working the shipping lines that move products over to maybe China to be processed, reprocessed, and moved back to the United States. We'll see it coming in air cargo, so we need jobs in air cargo. How do you handle fresh food, for example? We have certain containers such as the TEDS box, which is a brand new innovation in refrigerated cargo handling. This is a brand new innovation, much like the container that started back in the 50s. And containerization is the way we go these days to move bulk items. And there are jobs in the air industry, such as you see here, or driving a forklift. We have seafood containers and other kind of containers and goods that come by ship all over the world. Our seaports are full of containers. I work in the Norfolk area where we have a lot of containerization, as well as still break bulk. We still move things individually. But most of the jobs you'll find will be related to containerization, as you see here. Whether you're driving a truck, that you see in the middle, there's a little red box in a truck. Whether you're driving a truck that holds that container or you're moving this cargo from Asia to America through the Panama Canal, Suez Canal. There are jobs in the shipping industry, the rail industry that relate to this, because these containers also go off to the rail. One of the things that is very interesting these days, led by Walmart, led by the Department of Defense in 2005, is the replacement of the barcode. The barcode will be replaced one day, maybe not totally replaced, but this is an RFID, radio frequency identification tag. That little dot in the center is a microchip that holds about 96 pieces of information compared to 14 pieces on a barcode. There are people who are working in the various industries, military and civilian, trying to figure out how to use these RFID tags to move pallets. The trucking industry is big on it. Walmart's leading the way in this picture, where you would go grocery shopping, pick up your bag of groceries like oatmeal or macaroni and cheese, and that white picture in the screen is an antenna that would read that little tag that's buried somewhere in the cardboard box and show on a computer screen, here's what you purchased. You go in, you pick up your item, and you leave. Walmart is the leader in the retail side of making this work, and all the other retailers are picking up this aspect as well. So we're looking for people. Walmart's looking for people. DoD is looking for people who need to understand logistics and then how to use this technology. So if you're interested in looking at state-of-the-art technology in the logistics field, there's a career waiting for you there as well. And that really leads me into one of the major features that I'm excited about, and that's Panther, which is trucking. Trucking is a huge and growing industry. The last mile that everything comes to you will come by truck, okay? And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Phil so that we can listen to the stories of this great transportation industry and the jobs there. Phil?
And actually, this is Dan again. I'm going to interrupt really quickly and thank Oliver for that great introduction to RFID. And before Phil goes, I want to share a second poll with everybody, if that's all right. So watch your screens here, and I'm going to go ahead and open up a second poll. And the question is, if you had to choose, which transportation section would you prefer to have a career in? Trucking, rail, domestic air, international. Go ahead and make a selection. And we'll let everybody get a moment here to vote. And we've got almost everybody voted here, so I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. And let's see what types of result we have here. Wow, that's 50% said international, and then we had more or less a three-way tie for our other options here. So now I'd like to hand over the floor to Phil Ratcliffe, VP of Strategic Resources at Panther Expedited Services, who's going to share the results here of this poll and provide some additional information about transportation careers. And Phil, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dan, and I'd like to thank American Public University for having me today on this webcast. And the results of this poll are interesting. I wouldn't say they're unexpected. I think the international sector of transportation is an area where people recognize, especially in the past decade or so, that there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of growth potential. I'm a little surprised because trucking ranks second here among respondents, and I would have thought that trucking would have ranked perhaps last, if not third, only because it seems to be, I hate to say less desirable, but not as, let's say, sexy as international transportation would be. My goal here today is to share with you an exciting portion of the trucking industry, which is the company I work for, Panther Expedited Services, headquartered in Seville, Ohio, which is in northeast Ohio, close to Akron and Cleveland. And Panther is, we like to think of ourselves as a premium logistics provider, and we offer door-to-door service from any location in the world. We are very technologically driven. We invest a lot in our technology and computer systems, and we also invest, which may be of interest to those of you here that are interested in careers in transportation, we invest heavily in our people, and I want to talk more about that in the coming slides. Panther's roots are in ground expedite, and ground expedite is a form of trucking that specialized in providing services to the automotive industry starting in the 1980s when manufacturers transitioned into just-in-time inventory systems. And those systems were great and saved money and became more efficient, but just like any other system, they didn't work perfectly. And in that gap where those just-in-time systems didn't and still continue not to work perfectly, you have companies like Panther who fill in the gap. So we provide a service that is unique. It is a premium service where a customer will call today, and we have literally hundreds of customers calling us today to pick up a shipment today and deliver it today. So it's all same-day service, and we're talking about manufactured freight that's on skids or in bins or on racks that requires a larger truck to industrial freight to deliver it. Panther has expanded that service not just to the automotive industry, and it's probably a good thing that we have, because if we were completely tied just to automotive, we'd be struggling like most of the other companies out there who are tied just to automotive. But we've also broken into we call our elite services, which provides specialized transportation for special care and handling services like maybe museum moves or conferences. We also do work for the Department of Defense and temperature control, pharmaceutical services as well. So we offer a full gamut. We've also expanded from our core in trucking to air freight, and we started with domestic air freight by acquiring two different companies over the past 3 years, both on the West Coast in California, and we now currently have 5 terminals on the West Coast from Seattle all the way down to San Diego, providing that domestic air freight. Along with that, we have begun offering international services, or in the process of building that service offering at Panther, which also includes international air and ocean. And our next step as a company that we're working on this year and into next year will be to provide logistics services, 3PLs. As far as and this has been a transition, and I think in the successful companies in transportation that you're going to run into and that you either belong to or may want to belong to in the future, it'll be companies that are expanding their services potentially and becoming more sophisticated, and I think that's a trend across transportation in general. As a result, on the slide that's showing currently, the workforce requirements, and I mentioned before that we invest heavily in technology, and we do, but we also invest heavily in our people, and we expect more out of our people in return. And as we're recruiting, and currently Panther, and I'll share some statistics in the next slides, Panther is recruiting heavily for open positions. We are a growth company. We look for certain requirements, and it hasn't always been this way. Increasingly, we're looking for college recruits with specifically logistics, communication, and business majors. We also value industry experience as much as education. So people who've talked to and dealt with drivers, or who've been drivers, who've provided customer service skills, who've done logistics or sales and marketing, we're looking at and want to recruit those people. And we have requirements. We increasingly are implementing bars or levels that people must pass through to be employed with us. For instance, we use, for the past 3 years, a cognitive and productivity test for our operations folks that's provided by Wonderlic, which is a known standard company for providing that sort of pre-employment screening. Next slide shows our current employee educational level, and it goes to the point that I was making earlier. Approximately 70% of our current workforce, and this is a snapshot in time, has some sort of college education. I would tell you that as recently as 3 years ago, you could have done this pie chart almost on an inverse level, where at least 70%, if not more, of our workforce had no college or little college. So we have, in the past couple of years, really focused on recruiting people with college education and also encouraging our employees to get college educations. Just a pie chart of the way that we are organized as a trucking-based organization. 65% of our employee workforce of around 400 people is in operations, and then the rest are spread. You can see our sales group is next. We do consider ourselves to be a sales-driven organization, and then the other support services make up the rest. I told you that Panther has, for the past year approximately, coming right on the heels of the initial fallout from the recession, I'd say in July or August of 2009, we began hiring, and we have not stopped, and in fact cannot hire quickly enough to meet our current demand. Number of hires that we've had in the last 12 months, 118 in our operations group alone, and 12 in finance and admin, and you can see 28 in sales and marketing. A lot of those jobs are not just frontline jobs, but are good-paying outside sales positions, sales management positions, and also operations management and analyst positions. We also offer, in addition to the 400 office employees that we have in the building that you saw on the first slide, we also offer opportunities to over 1,500 owner-operator drivers. Those are not employees. They are independent contractors. They bring with them their own equipment, and then they sign on exclusively with Panther. We offer opportunities for those folks, and they are little mini businesses, and can actually, in the premium logistics market that we are in, generate a good living doing that with just one truck. We also have business people who we call fleet owners, and we try to groom fleet owners from our existing driver base who own more than one truck, and then they themselves employ drivers to drive those trucks that are signed on to Panther, and we call them fleet owners, and they are basically their own little fleet trucking company business that is tied directly into Panther. And it's a win-win for everybody, and it's a great business to have if you're in the transportation industry. As far as the opportunities Panther has itself within the offices or in our outside sales and marketing group, we currently have, I looked this morning, we have 37 positions posted. We've had about 40 positions, active positions posted for probably the last 6 months, and it's constantly changing and it's constantly evolving. We currently are offering jobs mainly in Northeast Ohio, but also in our terminals in Los Angeles, Seattle, Chicago, Sacramento, Portland. We have outside sales jobs in various states, and we even have an operations job down in Brownsville, Texas that we're trying to fill. So you can see, even for a company like Panther, which is probably a mid-sized transportation and trucking company that's in a niche market, there are a lot of exciting things going on. We are part of the new growth and the new types of transportation companies that are developing in the United States today, and we're proud to say that we are growing and that we are able to and are excited about the growth and being able to offer opportunities to people. So that is all I had. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Phil. Before we continue, let's go ahead and have our last on-screen poll. I'm going to go ahead and launch that now. And on your screen you'll see, how does transportation convey the most value? Is it A, low price, B, connecting the buyers and sellers, C, providing visibility, or D, employment? Go ahead and cast your vote on screen right now. We'll allow for a few moments. Again, how does transportation convey the most value? Alrighty here. Go ahead and cast your vote. And I'm going to close the poll now. And we had about 70% saying connecting buyers and sellers. And then second was low price. And third and fourth, we had a tie between visibility and employment. So on that note, I'm going to turn our floor and the microphone over to Professor Irv Arconi, who will discuss the results and share some insights from his perspective. Irv?
Dan, thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. It's a very interesting result. When we give these in our virtual open houses, the percentage will vary. In our industry, as often is the case, there's no clear black and white. It generally is gray. You have many options depending on the situation. One option may be better than the other. In this case, low price is, of course, very important. It's obviously also important to connect buyers and sellers, for without them, it's hard to have any value in transportation. Employment is also very important, and as we've seen in our economy, significant amounts of money have been spent by the government in transportation, in part to generate employment. Providing visibility, which got tied for the lowest amount, may in fact though be the most correct answer of all the correct answers. For without the visibility of cargo, there's little value from either buyers or sellers. All of us have experienced purchasing goods now on the internet. What are we very important, most concerned about? For sure that the material arrives, but really want to make sure is that we know where the material is and that we can predict when the material is going to get to our location. If you are a business, predictability provides value. So in this case, of all the four answers, visibility in fact is the most important, because it allows business to operate as efficiently as possible. The other three are correct answers as well. So it shows you a little bit about the gray areas that we have. And it shows you, I think, in my experience, makes this an exciting industry. So the industry that I come from is the aviation industry, which had a game changer in 1978. As you see there, our former President Jimmy Carter was president at the time. And toward the late 70s, we realized that transportation, which had been regulated for several decades, was not performing optimally. And what made us realize that were global economic conditions. If we weren't going to be competitive in transportation, then the U.S. economy would further lose its competitive edge. So the aviation industry was the first one that was deregulated. It was shortly followed by truck and the maritime and the rail industries. That was the game changer. And from that, a number of things have occurred. And we'll use the 5 W's and H to explain that a little bit. The business models that have developed since deregulation, essentially enabled by deregulation, were the business models of companies like FedEx and UPS. And why were this superior to cargo operations of combined carriers, that is those that move cargo and passenger? Because they were able to dedicate resources to movement of cargo. They were able to utilize airports during off hours, so a number of factors which previously had not been available. As a result, innovation is what created FedEx and UPS. So UPS was certainly around before, but they were principally a rather stodgy ground transportation company, and FedEx had been nothing more than an idea that its founder Fred Smith had when he was at Harvard, and he did a case study, and he failed that. According to his professor, that idea was not going to work. I don't know where that professor is these days. The second part about what is intermodalism in aviation is the ability for aviation to connect seamlessly with other transportation modes. Cargo has to get to the airport. It'll use either air or truck or rail, and have to connect so that in fact we provide a seamless system to our shippers and to buyers. Who are the principal aviation players? Well, there certainly will be the carriers, but there are many others. Airports are principal aviation players, freight forwarders and brokers, and third-party logistics providers. So principal players are certainly include carriers, but go beyond them as well. the future Lexus of global transportation, where it might be. Well, it does seem to have gravitated toward other key parts of the globe. That would be China, the Middle East, such as Dubai. So in fact, we have multiple centers of global distribution. Where the most important is, we'll see what the future will bring. And when will aviation industry be profitable? It has borne unbelievable difficulties, in part arising from oil price hikes and arising from having to adjust to a deregulated environment. Is it profitable? In the 50 years since we've had commercial, 60 years we had commercial aviation, the actual net profitability of the industry is approximately zero. So we hope for better times in the future. And how does security impact aviation? This has made great changes because now processes, systems, facilities, and training of aviation workforce has had to change. So it's causing the entire industry to refocus and reshape its processes, and I can tell you that we still have a long way to go before we do security in an optimum manner. So the industry works in a not in a static but in a dynamic environment, and part of that environment is what we look at are the changes that occur due to disruptions. Disruptions can be catastrophes, they can be minor changes, they can be intentional, they can be accidental, they can be caused by Mother Nature, they can be caused by greed. So we may have an earthquake, a volcano rather, erupting in Iceland, as you see there. And what did that do the last few months, and in fact continues to do so, but let's notice, is it caused airlines to have to ground aircraft until the authorities determine that it would be safe to fly through volcanic ash. What does that do? Well, it certainly annoys passengers who are traveling, but think of what it does for business, what they have to do to reconfigure and how they're going to move goods when normal airports are offline for them. So that has been a real test for the industry. But you can also have disruptions due to hurricanes that disrupt shipping near seaports. You can certainly have congestion as a disruptive factor. Too many ships calling on seaports that have not expanded adequately. And you can also have oil price disruption. What occurs when oil goes from, say, $60 a barrel to $140 a barrel? That has a tremendous change in how an operation works. And that can also have a disruptive impact. So to deal with all these, in our industry, in aviation and as in others, we look at supply chain security, preparedness, and resilience. And one of the things that we'll do is to follow the 5 steps of disaster management, including planning, detection, mitigation, response, and recovery. Why is this important? We can't wait for the disaster to occur and then start planning. Why is detection important? It's not always easy to see what the effects may be of a catastrophe. How long was it before we realized that the volcanic ash from Iceland, in fact, would have a disruptive factor? That did not occur the day that it erupted. It occurred a good deal later. Since we realize that we can't prevent disasters, we've got to look at what we can do to mitigate the negative consequences, and that's important. And then, of course, responding and recovering. What this tells us, and tells us those of us who are transportation professionals and seek a career in this industry, is that we cannot just simply look at the efficiency of an organization, cannot just simply look at how we can maximize the profitability of the operation, but how we can also minimize its vulnerability. For without minimizing vulnerability, any kind of operational efficiency that we're able to implement will be subject to disruptions and possible partial or complete loss of the enterprise. So today, the transportation professional, logistics professionals need to do both and need to determine where that trade-off is. At our university, we'll have a number of programs that can allow you to focus on more than just the degrees we have in transportation, and that's an important part this conveys in terms of how we can balance those two. To my last slide, the factors that are going to make you successful in this industry will be to understand what the industry, what environment the industry operates in. So part of this is risk management. So if you're a global express company like FedEx, how do you manage your risk? Well, you're going to understand currency fluctuations that can change economic factors. You're going to understand the politics that may change governments. But now you also have to understand compliance issues. So many governments now seek to protect the movement of goods, of people, that there are many regulations. So we are replacing the former regulated world of transportation with the somewhat regulated world of compliance. And these compliances are meant to keep individuals safe, to keep travelers safe, and to minimize potential disruptions and disasters to a nation. Secondly, the successful transportation professional will understand intermodalism, which is the seamless movement, as I indicated earlier, between different modes. That means planning and coordination between truckers and rail, air, aviation, and all of the other stakeholders that are involved in intermodalism. Thirdly, information technology. And as we saw in the poll question earlier, that the visibility of goods is extremely important, at times perhaps the most important factor in making an operation successful. Today, as we teach this subject, we will teach that the movement of information is equal in importance to movement of cargo. But without that information, the movement of cargo does not allow for that certainty and predictability that customers, shippers, and all the other stakeholders require. And lastly, in my experience of how the industry has changed, with so many transportation companies, different transportation modes, it has tended to be an adversarial industry. So freight forwarders would be cautious of cooperating too much with airlines because each thought that perhaps the other was trying to take advantage of them. Rail would try not to collaborate with truckers. Each thought the other would try and gain competitive advantage. That adversarial culture caused problems in the industry, and in a global competitive environment, that type of adversarial relationship, in fact, caused the U.S. transportation industry to suffer. As a result, and in order to become more competitive, our culture is changing, and that collaborative management has grown and becomes more important than adversarial. So that means all the different stakeholders, shippers, receivers of the government, seaports, airports, the security professionals, all these now work or seek to work. We are certainly far from being in a fully collaborative environment together. And by working together, we all protect the areas that we work in, and we make the systems more efficient. And in the end, having more efficiency will help all the stakeholders together. So I certainly suggest that transportation professionals need to develop collaborative skills and understand how collaboration, in fact, will help them in their business. So I thank you very much for that presentation. Let me turn it back to Dan.
All right. Thanks, Irv. A lot of great content covered. So what I want to do now is shift gears and take some questions. We had a number of questions come in, and I'm going to do my best to get as many answered as possible. We had a lot of questions for Phil. And in no particular order, I'm going to go ahead and start getting those answered. So the first one we have, let's see. Let me pick a good one to get things going. First question is for Phil. Is Panther hiring on the West Coast as well as in Ohio?
And that's a very good question. Yes, we are. We are hiring on the West Coast, and we have small air freight terminals located in Seattle. I know we're hiring in Seattle, both sales and operations. Los Angeles, Sacramento, San Diego, and I believe currently that's it. But we aren't hiring in all of them, but if you watch our website, you'll see that oftentimes one point or another we will be. So I think right now LA and Seattle is where we're hiring.
Great. Thanks, Phil. And the next question is a follow-up to that. What types of skill sets are being recruited in operations?
In operations, we like to see, and it depends on the position. So for our customer service representatives, we require a college degree of some sort, or at least that's a preference. And we also like to see customer service experience. Our customer service people are set up to be more sales and problem-solving driven, and we sell ourselves as a company, as a solutions provider. So the reason that Panther's expanded from being just trucking, even though it's an elite form of trucking, to both air and ocean and logistics is so that when a customer calls with a problem and they're willing to pay that premium price, that our customer service reps understand all the services well enough to be able to offer a solution, the best price solution to that customer that will meet their needs. And that's easier said than done, and it requires people who can problem solve, who have a very positive disposition, who want to help other people, and who interact well in a technologically driven environment that's changing all the time. So if you combine all of those, and that's just not our customer service reps, it's also our fulfillment people who cover these shipments, who have a different skill set, more industry driven. It's a tall order even for entry level. And then when we look at our management people, we want people who have industry experience that pertain to that job.
Thanks, Phil. The next question, let's push over to Phil, and then I'd like Irv or Oliver to chime in on. And that is, how does the outlook overall in the industry look for transportation logistics management? Phil, your comments, and then we'll pass the mic to Oliver and Irv.
Sure, and I will. Oliver and Irvin probably have a better perspective on this, but I appreciate the question. I can't say overall as far as transportation as an overall industry, its outlook. I think there is no doubt that as the global economy grows, and I know that's been a question over the past year and a half, but there's no doubt that the population of the, I'm probably answering this in larger terms than I need to, is only going to expand in the world, that economies are developing around the world that are demanding services and products, and as these things are more and more interconnected, obviously there's going to be more and more of a demand for logistics and transportation to provide those services. So I think it's a fantastic growing field. My history or my experience at Panther has been nothing short of fantastic. I did start on the ground level with the company and have grown with it, and it's great if you can find that sort of an opportunity. But even with large companies, there's a lot of great things happening and a lot of opportunities. So it is, I truly believe, a bona fide answer to well-paying jobs in the United States for the decline of manufacturing. So.
Let me add a point to that as well, if I may. Generally, the industry is a precursor, transportation is a precursor to general economic growth. And we have begun to see increased activity, increased tonnages being moved by the global express carriers, by rail, and that will at some point translate into a larger economic growth for the nation. So there are those opportunities. However, the industry has reconfigured. One could say it has reset, and it's going to do what it can to continue to grow, but to limit in terms of the hiring area. So the hiring will be more competitive. There will be, in fact, more growth opportunities, more in terms of hiring, but those will demand more and more skills. Those will demand more and more experience, and the ability to work, as we said earlier, in a collaborative environment and understanding all aspects of the transportation industry. So I think this is certainly happening, and that's just talking about the carriers, and I think those who are the actual shipping business, our retailers and our manufacturers, are going to see that activity as well, and I think those are areas to look at. Again, the skills will be different, more complex, but I think there'll certainly be hiring coming on.
And if I may jump back in, and that's a great point, Irvin, and that is, I'll answer from Panther's perspective instead of globally. What we're experiencing right now at Panther is during this recent recession, a lot of capacity, transportation capacity in the form of actual trucks available in the United States shrunk dramatically. And as companies are now re-inventorying and the economy is showing signs of recovery, demand is outstripping the amount of capacity that's out there, the amount of trucks. And so what we have experienced is we can't raise prices to our customers fast enough. Now, a year ago, we couldn't, well, about a year and 6 months ago, we could not lower our prices fast enough to stay competitive. Now we can't raise them fast enough, and that is across all trucking companies, not just the premium logistics that we provide. I just wanted to add that point.
All right, great. Oliver, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Let me add one more thing there. Chime in with Phil and Irv has said that I've looked at the transportation industry for a number of years as well as our other panelists, and there are things changing. People are recognizing in different retail industries that the logistics need is something they need to add more formally to their companies. Logistics is always going to be there. It's always been there. But the trucking industry, for example, you're always going to have a truck deliver that package to your door. The last mile is trucks. But the recession of 2008 also increased a coordination between rail and trucking and air cargo, and those jobs are there. And people have been educated to understand the difference between an air cargo LD3 container and the kind of containers that are on trucks and rail that are moved all around, and shipping containers as well. If you understand that flow, well, where that box goes, it's very complex. If you understand that, that's a career door opener when you have that job interview. If you understand that language, and there's a language to understand. So the education is probably more important now in the transportation and logistics area, I'd say, since before 2006 when we hit this recession. So they are there, and the baby boomer truck drivers, by the way, are retiring. And so we're seeing a whole new crop of people who are getting into the ground floor of trucking as well. So it's kind of exciting. It really is, as Irv said, it's a sea change. The game change has happened here. The industry is changing, and poised for great changes in the next 5 or 10 years, and it's really exciting for me and everybody to really be here right now to watch this change. That's about it.
Our next question, staying on the jobs theme, is for Irv. Are you aware of any APU or AMU graduates working in the rail industry? Is that a popular career path, or SCM?
I am indeed in the rail industry. Some who work for Norfolk Southern are actually currently students. And as we mentioned, many of our students are working in the industry, and they're pursuing degrees to improve themselves. So the rail is in there. From my anecdotal information, perhaps not as popular as trucking or in third-party logistics, but they're there. In supply chain management, SCM, well, all of us do work in the supply chain management area in one way or another. We may not have overall responsibility for all activities within the supply chain, but all of us work within them. I'm not aware of our graduates who have gone into a senior position in supply chain management. There may very well be. We have an awful lot of folks who are in the military in transportation logistics, and as they move up in their ranks, they essentially do become supply chain managers, which is defined by the incorporation of all activities related to movement of goods information, interacting with the various stakeholders within a company outside, and certainly our senior transportation people in the military are involved in that. I had wanted to mention, as when we talked about these open houses, that for those of you interested, and you'll see the schedule, that every first Thursday of the month at 8 p.m. Eastern, there's an open house in logistics, and every third Thursday at noon, there's an open house as well. So if you prefer the evening or the afternoon, you can choose one or the other. And these are, in fact, some of the issues that we discuss on those open houses. Thanks, Dan.
Our next question is for Phil. If you might take a moment and describe at a high level the hiring process Panther uses, if there's anything particular folks should know, and then I'm going to actually add 2 more parts to the question. So is there, are there internships available? And then part C, how do folks find out about positions and the internships?
All good questions. So the way that we hire at Panther currently is we require people to apply online. We do have in-house recruiters who are part of the HR department, and They sometimes will outsource, or they'll go out on monster.com and look for people or sites like that. But a lot of times we advertise, and so you see an ad, and the ad will instruct you to apply online. Once you apply online, our recruiters screen the application. If they are interested in the individual and feel they meet the requirements, they'll talk to them on the telephone. And then there's an interview process that can consist of normally a couple of interviews at least, wherever the location is at that the person's being hired. We do have pre-screen testing for our operations and sales folks that I mentioned before, cognitive and then productivity tests for the operations people, and cognitive and sales personality testing, for lack of I can't think of what the test is actually called, for our sales folks. And then from there, if they pass that and they interview and pass the interview, then they are offered the job. It's a process that could take a couple of weeks, but our recruiters do respond quickly, usually within a day of receiving the application. The intern program that we have is new. We just put together a formal plan this past year, and it's in our headquarters in Seville. And we reached out to some local colleges that are around us to start with, and have brought in, I believe, a student from Akron University and then another one from another college. But does not mean that we aren't open to it. We just did that because it was close and convenient, a good place to start. As far as being interested in being an intern, if you applied for, we do post those on the internet, by the way, but you could also email me directly at pratcliffe@pantherexpedite.com, or you could call into Panther and talk to a recruiter, and they'd be able to tell you about those internship opportunities. Those are potentially year-round. They're not just summer interns. And they're designed to, we've actually designed them so that people get a pretty broad range of experience of the organization and of premium logistics, so they're nice to have. And then, I'm sorry, what was the third question, Dan?
I actually think you covered it. Was
Okay.
Are there internships available, and if so, how to find out about those? So,
Okay.
But I do have another question for you. We've got a attendee dialing in from Norfolk, Virginia, and they had a great question. Two questions actually. The first one was if you guys had an office in Norfolk that they could visit, and then their other question actually is a great one that I'll share with the audience here. They're currently in the Coast Guard, again in coastal Virginia, and they're seeing some empty containers just sort of sitting around in the port. Is that a reflection of the economy? Is it a one-time deal, or is it a lack of U.S. manufacturing productivity?
As far as the first question, unfortunately, we do not have an office in Norfolk, Virginia. We have the office here in Northeast Ohio, and then we have the handful out on the West Coast. Maybe at some point in the future, as we expand our operations, we may end up in the Southeast, but currently not. And then as far as the container or the question on containers, I'm just not familiar enough with that business to know whether that's normal or not. Maybe Irvin or Oliver could help with that question.
Well, right now there's a lot of containers around, and one of the problems in the maritime industry is the one-way movement of cargo. We have picked up more in the import of goods, so we have a lot of containers coming, but we don't have as much of an export. So you have an imbalance, which often occurs in the transportation industry. So we have to find ways to balance that out, but sometimes you'll see containers around because stuff's come in, but there isn't as much stuff to go out. Someone's come up with a novel idea that even if you can't fill the containers, you might as well hire a ship and send empties back. There's a cost to that, but without the containers, the areas of the world that are exporting, such as Asia and so forth, it's better to spend to have this come in. So sometimes you see those oddities in transportation.
Let me add something to that, if I might. It's interesting you mentioned the word Norfolk, Virginia. I sit here in Norfolk, Virginia, and we work with containers. The newspapers here, as far as jobs are concerned, the containerization field is ripe for jobs, whether to be in an operations room offloading containers on a ship or putting them on a truck, driving them up and down Interstate 64 here where I live. But there's a debate going on with the longshoremen, and the containerization in Norfolk, Virginia Beach, down to Savannah, and up to Richmond, Virginia, all connected by water, is basically containerization. The ports here are built for containerization movement. Up the about 100 miles north of here, on the Chesapeake Bay, a place called Baltimore. Baltimore is one of the masters of break bulk. We still move boxes. We still move barrels. We still move nets of little boxes that aren't in pallets. Things are still moved in break bulk operations. While we do have containerization, and it is probably the backbone of our industry today, there is a world of break bulk that still exists that goes in the holds of ships. You've seen trucks run up and down the roads with individual tires in them. That's kind of like break bulk. But the industry is containerization, but there is still that other side of the world that exists, and there are jobs in that area too, because managing a labor force that moves an individual tire versus a container of tires takes a different kind of skills, and there are jobs there as well. And interesting. That's about it.
Our next question is, let's see here, about career fairs and job opportunities at Panther, as well as other organizations in the transportation logistics management arena. If you are looking for opportunities from Panther, of course you can visit their website, as Phil has mentioned, where they list all of their opportunities. But another great way to find out about careers in the field of your interest is to contact your advisor or visit APU's website and click over to our career services page. We also have a Facebook group called Employer Partnership Program, and that's where we partner with various employers such as Panther to provide unique job opportunities to APU and AMU students. So there are many resources available, and again, to find those out, visit our website, punch in a search for Employer Partnership Program, and you can find out about those. The next question is for Professor Hedgepath. And it asks, while a logistics degree is important, there are a lot of different programs and courses you can take. Are there any specific courses you like to see students take that think perhaps give them an edge or additional advancement that you might want to share?
Well, actually, obviously all the courses are important. And it does really depend on what your focus is. We have people coming from the rail industry, as mentioned earlier, and they really like to focus beyond the core courses on some courses that relate to that aspect, or port authority. We have folks who want to understand more how the ports operate because they come from maybe a maritime industry. I don't really have any favorite courses to speak of. I mean, I do like teaching history of transportation. But understanding that history is important. Understanding how to look at the data that's out there. You saw the pie charts that Phil presented of how they're hiring people and where the jobs are located. Understanding that aspect is important. The intermodal and the global aspect is so key. We have courses in intermodal and how to move that cargo, how to move that container from Africa through maybe Panama Canal or wherever it gets up to Long Beach or wherever it's going. Understanding that transportation network is what you get out of really all these courses, all these core courses. And I don't really have one really particular favorite. It's just they're all blended together and make a package of knowledge that, let me tell you, when you go out and you get a job interview and they ask you a few questions about global logistics, and believe me, they will, just being able to say you know about how to move a container, or you know that there are maybe 100 steps in moving a coffee bean from Africa to that Starbucks cup of coffee you're drinking in Seattle. That's very exciting stuff to me, but it's also an employer is listening, and this tells them, hey, they understand how complex this world is. Logistics is probably one of the most complex procedures and processes, but you can stay focused. You can work in a warehouse for 20 or 30 years. I have friends in Safeway warehouse, and they love it, and it's a lifelong career. Retail industries like Walmart, lifelong careers. So the courses we teach aren't really tailored toward one other or another aspect of the industry. They're tailored to all of it. So I hope that answers the question. And I'm online, by the way. Send me an email, and I'll be glad to chat with you a lot more.
Great, thanks. We're going to take just a couple more questions because we are running a few minutes over. And I'm not going to let Irv suggest which classes to take because he's just going to mention his own. But what I will do is we've got a couple questions about particular areas of the industry. The first one is what types of positions are available in 3PL or third-party logistics? And we've got another question about what type of degree from APU is needed to become to enter the field of freight forwarding or freight brokering. So I was wondering if Irv could maybe chat about that, and then either Phil or Oliver to jump in. But again, 3PL and freight forwarding.
The third-party logistics industry consists of companies which have performed functions, essentially functions that have been outsourced by a company to them. A retail matching company may use a third-party logistics provider to be their warehouse provider, their truck provider. That is a fantastic growing area because as companies seek to outsource, which is to shed capital investment, reduce their capital that's tied up, and also to have companies that is more of their core competence, more of their expertise. So there are opportunities, I believe, available in all the areas within a 3PL. That could be information technology, could be operations management, in all those areas. In terms of the degrees that prepare you best, well, certainly the T&LM degree is an excellent preparation for that. But as we indicated, by itself, it's not the only way to do so. You may have you may desire to work in disaster logistics, humanitarian logistics, and these days with all the unfortunate and very catastrophic disasters we've had, whether it's oil spills or hurricane, it is the science of logistics that enables a government, an organization, a community to be able to respond and recover from that disaster. So you may move into that area by taking a TLM degree, but using the electives that you have and take courses in disaster management from our emergency disaster management group. So a variety of our degrees can prepare you because, in fact, transportation is multidisciplinary movement, and in taking such a degree, you should focus on doing those different concentrations to focus in on a particular type of career that you seek in logistics. Thank you.
Okay, great. So one of our final questions here is about security. Obviously, in this day and age, security management and intelligence are much a part of transportation logistics as any industry. And I was wondering if Irv could touch on that briefly, and then, of course, Oliver and Phil, if you want to chime in as well.
Thank you very much. As I indicated, security has a great impact on all of us. Phil's company certainly has an impact in terms of just starting with drivers and background checks for drivers. The commodities that Phil is moving on those vehicles can be very high value. A 40-foot trailer of, let's say, cigarettes may have a retail value of some $2 million, and that becomes very interesting for individuals who may want to criminally engage in that activity. So security has been very important because of the value of goods, but certainly today it's more complicated because it's not just security against cargo theft, which is very prevalent and still very commonplace, but we have to be careful now in terms of individuals who may seek to utilize transportation assets to intentionally cause catastrophes, as we've seen in the catastrophe of 9/11. And so we have to worry about that. We have many individuals who are in the security industry who are in our classes because they seek to learn about the transportation industry, and that way, by understanding how logistics works, they can better perform their responsibilities. And we have many people who are in transportation logistics who are taking security degrees, or at least a concentration in security, because, as I mentioned in one of my slides, it is insufficient to operate a business and to gain efficiency in operations without also minimizing its vulnerability. And those of us in logistics will do well to understand how that works, and those who are in security, obviously, to do a better job, would need to learn more about the logistics area. This is, unfortunately, a growth area in transportation, and we hope that all of you who are interested and come from expertise in one or the other can look at advancing their knowledge in the area they need, and that would be even better equipped to work in the industry. Thank you.
Let me add one little thing there too. Yeah, the security feature we talk about in all of our classes in transportation and logistics, and trying to understand it. We have expertise from students as well as our faculty in how to use things like radio frequency identification, or RFID, to help track things. We understand how to use GPS systems. But more than that, we understand when security fails, and we talk about the failures in our classes, because while you go out and get a job after you've got this degree and you get hired and you understand how to use GPS and different security systems and features on that container, that's well and good. But if you haven't thought about and done some brainstorming, maybe in a classroom, where you say, okay, where is it going to fail? Where might it fail? And we think about it, that's where your value comes from. That's where your value is added, as Irv said earlier after the online survey he gave. The value you give in understanding where it can go wrong is so much needed today. You don't want to just follow the rules and say, okay, put this device on that container and walk away and that's it. You need to think carefully through different scenarios where something might get breached, and we discussed that a great deal, and that's also, again, a nice skill to carry into your job interview.
All right. I want to wrap things up here. I know we're a few minutes over, so before we go, I want to give an extra special thanks to our speakers. Again, Professor Oliver Hedgepath for his comment on RFID and his information. Phil Ratcliffe from Panther Expedited Services for his discussion on career opportunities. And, of course, Professor Varconi for his information on the wide spectrum of courses, career paths, and the sort of interdisciplinary approach of TLM. I want to remind everyone about our upcoming TNLM open houses that occur throughout the month. To find out when those are occurring next, visit our website. At the bottom of the page of apus.edu, you'll find a link to virtual open houses. Click that and you'll get the full schedule. We'll also have a recording to share of this event that we'll send out in the next few days over email. There's nothing you need to do to receive it. You'll get it automatically. And at the end of this event, once we close things out here, you're going to get a pop-up on your screen to fill out a 60-second survey. We definitely value your feedback about this event. Please take a moment to share your thoughts. And if you do have any questions, make sure you send us an email to admissions@APUS if you have questions about courses and degrees, or if you have questions about our upcoming webcast, shoot us an email at webcast@apus.edu. So with that, I want to thank everybody for your time. I want to thank all of our speakers. I want to wish you a great week, and we look forward to seeing you in our online classroom in the future. Have a great day. Thank you.